So yeah, basically this movement from what I can see is essentially a bunch of people getting together, a whole bunch of South Africans trying to invoke a bit of positivity, a bit of hope, and really the trying to kind of get the ideals going, and yeah, rallying behind each other to stay in the country. The fact that this movement was created for me obviously invokes the fact that a lot of people are leaving. Me being one of them, and I'd probably say about 60% of my close friend group having also moved over in the last 2 years. So being there still in South Africa, what is the I'm staying movement all about? Is it genuine, or is it really just a bunch of people trying to kind of feel better about everyone else leaving?
Yeah, so it's a topic that is difficult to broach, and it's a difficult one because it has a lot of other connotations and undertones that are socially and politically challenging in South Africa. As far as I understand, the nexus of it lives on a Facebook group. So the Facebook group is kind of the home for it. And like you say, it's a place for people to post good news about South Africa, or kind of encouraging messages about why they are staying in the country. And the reason, like you say, is that we continue to have a huge brain drain, where a lot of our young, top talented people are leaving the country for greener pastures, either in the UK, in the US, Australia, Asia, etc. And so this is a kind of a pushback against that, trying to encourage people to stay in the country and work on some of the things that South Africa are struggling with. The intention of the group, I think, comes from a good place. I think that the intention is from a good place. It's an understanding of, we want to fight for South Africa. We are South Africans. We don't want to leave. We want to stay and actually help make this country better. But what happens in these kind of mass social media movements, and we've seen it in thousands of other occasions, is it becomes a means of rationalizing things to yourself without actually doing anything. Yeah. Right. And so my kind of personal feelings on it was that when I see those posts, is that what I see people complaining. I see people rationalizing to themselves why they're staying, trying to make themselves a hero for staying, and they're not a hero for staying. Right. Everyone's life circumstances are so different, and so you can't judge one person because 100%. They left versus they stayed. And what it does is it gives them the kind of the impression that they're doing something. It gives them that little like tick of dopamine that says, I did my part today. I posted my Facebook post. I liked that tweet, whatever I did. And that gives me the feeling that I've done something for South Africa. But yes, South Africa, the real South Africa, is unchanged. And so it really frustrates me because I am a passionate South African. I want to be here and I want to help it grow this country. And so I'm trying to take action in the real world to do it. Again, social media is not action, right? We've got this really mixed up because we've seen so much activism and so many like revolutions started through social media. For example, the Egypt uprising and various examples around the world. We've seen great examples of social media which kind of catalyzes movements and catalyzes revolutions. But that's what it does. It catalyzes it. It doesn't actually do the revolution. It doesn't actually implement it, right? And so a group like I'm Staying, while the intention, I think, is good, and I agree with the message, but the way it's implemented and the fact that people are just on there every day rationalizing the decision to themselves that they're staying in the country for some moral reason, but in their own personal time, all they care about is themselves, and they don't do any work to actually push South Africa forward. And so those are kind of my thoughts. I'd be curious to know from your side, Chad, because obviously you were South African and now you're in London. What is the feeling from South Africans on that side for this kind of debate?
I haven't actually broached the subject anywhere, but I certainly will be. I think it's interesting. I think you articulated it very well there in terms of it being for people rationalizing their decision and kind of getting that moral high ground for, choosing to stay and really, as you say, feeling like they deserve some sort of pat on the back for saying they're staying. And I think I read a very interesting article written by a guy by the name of Andile Zulu, him having a personal blog. Basically he's sort of detailed that as good as the intention of this movement may be, it fails to bring any significant action, which is what you mentioned as well. And instead, all it does is instills hope and idealism. And, South Africa's had this in the past. He explains how, pictures of the past, like Cyril Ramaphosa being this big change that was going to, do so much for the country has really failed, and various other examples as well. And so I think it's an interesting article. I certainly would go and read it if you curious to find out about what's happening in South Africa and essentially the sentiment there. I definitely do salute you for being there on the ground and really wanting to do that change. And certainly on Barry's part, I know it's not really just a pat in the back, and he's really there for dramatic change. And yeah. I definitely salute you on that front. But as you say, somebody who has left for whatever reason is kind of looked at in a negative light. And I definitely think, if, as you say, back to basics, get everything right, and then let's talk about how we did everything so well, rather than just trying to be positive. And ultimately, corruption in government and poverty everywhere around the country, crime being a massive thing, low electricity, etc., etc. The list goes on. That ultimately not having changed. So yeah, I completely agree with you there.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's too much talk and not enough action, right? One of my biggest frustrations, one of my biggest pet peeves with people here in South Africa, especially my white friends, to be honest, is that there's a lot of complaining and a lot of looking down on South Africa and looking down on the problems that we're facing and talking like rubbish about our country. And there's not enough actual action of saying, cool, if I complain about this thing, how can I make it better in my own way? How can I work with organizations that are trying to make this better? And obviously I understand that one person's not going to change the world, right? One person's not going to turn everything on its head. But if all of the young people in South Africa who actually cared about the country actually just took a few steps of action, got away from Facebook, got away from Facebook groups, and just got out to the community and met someone who's different than them, all right? Or go to help in an underprivileged community, or try and build a business that's serving a particular need in the community. That kind of action is much more valuable and is what South Africa needs, less so than talk. South Africans love talking, and they love shouting at each other and writing comments and all this kind of stuff. And if they just use a little bit of that energy in the real world, so outside of Facebook in the real South Africa, that's when change comes. And if you're not going to be willing to fight for that change, if you're not going to actually work for that change, then don't complain, right? Don't complain, and also don't try and get a pat on the head for sticking around even though you're not doing anything. That I'm gonna get off my soapbox now.
100%. Yeah, absolutely, completely agree on that one. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a good movement. But yeah, let's see if any real change happens there. Across the pond.